You know how many trees are cut down, how many gallons of gasoline consumed, how many dollars are spent on just packaging alone each year in the United States? You can imagine it's a pretty big number. You know, I think that's because we have this practice of mass gift giving and receiving in the United States, but I think that we should stop that practice because it's not good for us. And first I'm going to tell you how the practice of mass gift giving and receiving is bad for our mental and physical health. Then I'm going to go on about how it also negatively affects the environment. And finally I'm going to show you how, we as a culture are already moving away from that practice and how we can greatly speed that up, and that will be good for us. So let's start first with how this affects our health. The practice of gift giving and receiving on a mass scale is very dangerous for us. It's reported from a 2012 WebMD article that heart attacks and strokes during the holidays are greatly increased, and there is a large correlation with holiday shopping around those times too. There are also examples, if you look on the news around that time of year, of people getting trampled in fights, the stress, going into debt, all sorts of terrible things that happen to people trying to get the best gift deal. Some opposing arguments to that, to be fair, are that, over 95% of us will participate in that gift giving and receiving, and that's according to Statista.com 2019 survey. And that same survey, it also shows that the economy improves a lot and gets over 500,000 jobs around that holiday season. So, that's fair, but, I think honestly that that also highlights some of society's inequalities from this practice of mass gift giving and receiving. In a song by the band Everclear, there's my favorite lines. It goes, "They will never know the joy of a welfare Christmas." And I think that's because it really highlights social and economic inequalities. And so when you're a poor child or a parent that can't provide for your child with a gift during the holiday season, or even if people are able to be charitable and give you gifts, everyone knows that you weren't able to do it yourself. And while that might feel good, it really also makes people feel less than. And I think that's not good for society as a whole. Also, in my experience, I find that people, they focus so much on the getting and giving of gifts that they don't focus on the time spent with those people and how that's actually more important, and the real reason for a lot of these celebrations like birthdays and weddings and Christmas and all these other holidays that we, at least in the United States, like to celebrate. So now that I've gone over the health and the mental negative aspects of gift giving and receiving, let's talk about the environment. So mass production, the shipping, the giving and disposing of those gifts, that whole cycle is really bad for the environment. If you think about toys from the holidays that are most often, quickly disposed of, and usually those toys, after they're broken and thrown away or whatever happens to them, that all ends up in landfills, hopefully. If not, it ends up in our oceans or other natural, beautiful places, and that's terrible. And to demonstrate that, I want you to really to paint a picture. If you thought about all the toys that you received as a child, how many of those did you actually keep for more than like a couple months or a year? How many of those broke? And then how many of those were thrown away before they were given to someone else? And for me, I know for myself that most of those toys that I've seen or seen other people in my family get, they've usually either been broken, thrown away, or ignored. And that's just a big waste. I want you to look at this picture. Okay, it's of a landfill, and you can see that there's a lot of wrapping and packaging in there from Christmas and holidays. And if you imagine how many people buy packaging gifts throughout the whole year, let alone for the holidays, that pile of trash times 300 million plus people in the United States is staggering. So there's a big impact with that. There's also a huge amount of CO2 that's released from that gift cycle. In Plastic and Climate, it's a book about the hidden costs of plastic on our planet. They released cumulative figures that plastic production releases 53.2 tons of carbon each year in the United States alone. Imagine that for the whole world. Landfills themselves release massive amounts of carbon from all that material being then thrown away into the landfills and other greenhouse gases. Guess where all that gas goes? The number of trees and barrels of oil that are used for wrapping paper and for gifts, if ethical ocean could help us, encourage us. It gave us this one beautiful little segment on what we can do to help out our planet. It said if every family used just 2 feet of holiday ribbon instead of what they normally use, that'd be 38,000 miles of ribbon saved that could tie a bow around the entire planet. If every American just wrapped 3 presents in reusable materials, it would save enough paper to cover 45,000 football fields 10 stories high. So I've shown you how bad that is for the environment, for all these gift giving and receiving. So let's talk now about how, we as a culture in the United States are already moving away from the practice of mass gift giving and receiving, and how speeding that up would be beneficial for us. While now culturally, there's everything on the news and advertisements for, encouraging mass gift giving and receiving, a lot of people say, well, there's holiday justification for that because it's traditions from, Christian and pagan holidays. That's true. But also those same pagan and Christian traditions greatly encourage people to, instead of like laying up treasures in heaven, focus more on the poor. Like in Deuteronomy it says, for your free shall openly hand from the land, and therefore you shall freely open your hand to your brother and in need and the poor of the land. The world is moving away from those practices of practicing religion. So why then are we celebrating more religious holidays, like how China Christmas has expanded so much? Who is pushing that? Is it Christian religion, or is it big retailers and producers? And I think you know the answer to that. So now that I've talked about, how this is bad for our planet, how it's bad for our health, and how we're already kind of moving away from it, I want you guys to really think that we should stop the practice of mass gift giving and receiving. And I hope that if we stop that, the consequences of these and other cultural practices, it will help us as a people transition to a better world. Thank you.